Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of Little Acts of Kindness. This will be Part 29, Chapter 29, entitled Confirming Internships. Izuku collapsed back onto the bed, silently groaning as his body throbbed with a dull pain. Yesterday's afternoon class had been exhausting with all the running and jumping, as Aizawa had them running through the course again and again. After they all passed the second time, he increased the difficulty. No one had passed then. Once the class was over, Yamada had come over and dragged him for more voice training. Izuku knew he was slowly improving, but he was regretting it this morning. He was exhausted. It didn't help that after voice training with Yamada, he still had a brief counseling session with Hound Dog, mostly though they were working on meditating. Though it was hard in the bro hero's presence since Izuku still didn't trust him. Logically, he knew he should trust the hero, but he couldn't help but be wary of him. He also knew he had to get up, get ready for class. After today, though, he would have the weekend to relax. With a sigh, he dragged himself out of bed into his closet. Grabbing a uniform, he put it on. Grabbing his bag, he slung it on his shoulder and went into the kitchen, making himself a bowl of cereal. Then he went to his mom's room, shaking her awake. He left her to get dressed and went back to the kitchen, making breakfast for her. After setting the dish out, he left the apartment, locking the door as he went to the train station. A short journey, and he found himself walking through the gates of UA. Finally, the buzz from the sports festival was starting to die down a bit, which meant that people weren't trying to talk to him as much on the train. Izuku walked through the nearly empty halls of UA as he went towards the classroom. The only person he saw was Midnight Sensei. She smiled, waving at him, signing a good morning, and he gave a small wave back, signing back to her. With that simple exchange, she continued on her way, and Izuku went to the classroom. Aizawa and Yamada already there. "Little listener," Yamada said, grinning and giving a thumbs up. "Good morning," Izuku signed once more, smiling at the two teachers. Soon the three were signing to each other, Izuku using the book to help him figure out what he needed to sign, while the teachers also spoke as they signed, letting him associate words with what they were saying. Slowly, he was picking up signs. "So, you know how names typically don't turn into sign? Well, people often use call signs for names. Sho and I have our own call names for each other. Him being Sleepy Cat," Yamada said, repeating the sign for Sleepy Cat a few times. "And I'm Loud Cockatoo." Once more, the teacher repeated the sign for Loud Cockatoo a few times. "So, an adjective and an animal," Izuku signed after checking the book. "It's what we decided to do, but call signs can be anything, so long as you know what you're referring to. What do you think your call sign should be?" Izuku flipped through the book again. He wanted to follow the theme that Aizawa and Yamada had set for each other, but what animal and adjective should he use? "Helpful for an adjective, but I'm not sure what animal to use." "What about bunny?" Yamada suggested. "Or a fox. Your plans are really clever, after all," Aizawa also suggested. "Helpful fox it is, then," Izuku signed after debating between the two animals for a bit. "Yeah! Helpful fox, Loud Cockatoo, and Sleepy Cat are all set to party," Yamada signed, Izuku only having to look up the last sign. Aizawa rolled his eyes. "No parties on a school day." "What about after school?" Midnight asked, walking in with a stack of papers in her hand as she grinned. Aizawa stared flatly at her. "You threw a party just last weekend, Nem." She snickered. "Just means I can throw another party. In all seriousness, though, I'm heading out of town this weekend. I was hoping you guys would take care of Sushi." Aizawa nodded. "We will. How is he holding up?" Her smile looked a bit sad. "I don't think he'll be around much longer. Old age is catching up to him. Anyways, I need to get ready for my classes. Could you hand out these papers during homeroom? I want the kids to have a chance to look at them before my class so I can help them go over the answers they got wrong." "Of course," Aizawa said, taking the papers from her. "Bye," she called out, waving as she exited the room. Izuku watched as she left and questioningly signed, "Sushi?" to the two teachers. Aizawa huffed, amused. "Her cat. She's had him for almost 16 years now." Izuku nodded. "What about you? Do you guys have a pet?" "No," Aizawa signed. "With all our jobs, we just don't have the time to give a pet the attention it deserves," Yamada further explained. "Anyways, little listener, did you pick an internship?" Izuku nodded. "Yes, but even before the sports festival, I already had one in mind. An older hero, Gran Torino, he's going to be able to help me with superpower. All Might said that the hero helped him when he was younger. We met briefly before the sports festival, and he helped me realize that I need to spread it across my body instead of just one limb. That's how I was able to use it safely during my fight against Monoma." Izuku slowly signed, referring to the book and finger-spelling the names. Aizawa raised an eyebrow. I see. I'm glad you're getting help with superpower. Be careful, though. I will. Well, I better go get ready as well. I'll talk with you later, Sho, little listener, Yamada said, giving a nod as he walked out. A moment later, the two heard Ida and Yamada greeting each other in the hallway. Soon, Ida entered and nodded to the two. Good morning, Sensei. Midoriya. Good morning, Izuku signed back. Morning, Aizawa responded. Soon he and Ida were going over basic signs, the class president helping him study the signs and memorizing them without having to constantly go back and forth, and check the book to make sure that he was picking the right option. A few minutes later, and more students came in, Tokiyami showing up and coming over to them. Signing is useful for us predators to learn. May I join you in learning the silent communication? Izuku gave a thumbs up and Ida nodded. Of course. They spent the last 10 minutes going over the basic greetings with Tokiyami. Dark Shadow was also hovering around, watching them as they formed the signs with their hands. The intelligent quirk seemed to quickly pick up the sign meanings, though it couldn't make the signs. Dark Shadow, do you have a gender pronoun you prefer? Izuku asked, tilting his head to the quirk after he checked the book. They or them, Dark Shadow said, giving a loose thumbs up. A minute before the bell rang, and the door slid open, revealing Bakugo. His 3-day suspension was up. The blonde glared at them as he went to his seat, plopping himself down as the bell rang. Everyone was silent. Aizawa stood up. Internship papers are due. Please hand your papers forward. This next week, everything will be finalized to make sure that you are prepared for a week-long trip. If any issue comes up with your first choice, I will let you know. Izuku and the other students started passing papers forward, handed his to Kirishima after getting a paper from Sato. Kirishima passed it to Kaminari, who handed it to Ojiro. Ojiro stepped forward, placing the papers on the desk as Shoji, Aoyama, and Hagakure did the same. Aizawa handed them back the papers Midnight dropped off, instructing them to sort the papers and pass them back. Soon the stack was being handed out as everyone grabbed their own paper and continued to pass the stack around. Aizawa looked at them all and then pulled out a sleeping bag and went to sleep. Shota looked through the papers, marking down each person's choice and getting in contact with the internship to make sure it was good. Internships, huh? Snipe questioned. Shota gave a grunt. I wonder how many made rash decisions. It's darn important, you know. Make 'em really think on it. Some of my third years made some choices they regret now. Right. Shota paused as he finalized another choice, looking at Ida's paper. There was only one choice on it, Manuel's agency, and Hosu. Shota frowned. Ida was one of his more sensible kids, focused on rules, so he doubted the kid would do anything reckless in Hosu. But still, he was sure the kid had better choices available. Tensei had been injured by Stain, paralyzed. Maybe Ida wanted to go to Hosu because that's where Tensei had been working when injured, a sense of duty. Looking behind him at Inui, he sighed. What do you think of Ida's request for Hosu? You think something is wrong with him picking Manuel's agency? If it was one of the other kids, I would think he was going for a chance to go after Stain, but Ida has always been responsible. You're wondering if it would be better to put him in a different agency, on the off-shot he might not be as responsible as you thought, Inui stated. Shota nodded. What about the effect of denying him this? He could be using it as a closure of sorts, getting a feel for the area that ended his brother's career. Being denied it wouldn't be good for him. Besides, Manuel wouldn't let Ida get into trouble. He'll take care of Ida. Giving a grunt, he turned back around and sent the email to Manuel's agency, saying Ida had agreed to join them for internships. Slowly he went through the rest of the papers, pausing briefly at Midoriya's to look at the name of the retired hero who was supposed to help him with the quirk Midoriya had copied from All Might. Gran Torino. He sent the hero a confirmation email and then searched up his name. Google searching came up with no results, which surprised him, so he went to the Hero Network, a website where all heroes were registered. Searching up that website had results pop up of a hero in a yellow and white outfit, who was often seen working with a woman with black hair. Both wore capes. They were shown to fight side by side, her floating and him bouncing off of things to confuse an enemy. He would distract, and she would go in for a punch or a kick, showing that she had an extremely strong arm. Looking down at the description of the video, he found that she was just known as the floating hero to the public. Neither of them were particularly popular, it seemed. A further search on the Hero Network revealed that the two were old underground heroes, though they had been in a few big fights apparently. The woman was deceased, and Gran Torino was, of course, listed as retired, though his profile had been updated recently showing he had renewed his hero license. Shota frowned, so the man was coming out of retirement just to help Midoriya. He snorted. Well, it seemed Gran Torino had All Might's teaching style pegged, though All Might was improving with the other teacher's help. Letting out a breath, he put the papers to the side. Now he had to wait for the confirmations to be sent, and he would let the kids know Monday which agency they were going to. That would give them until Friday night to get everything they needed in preparation for leaving Saturday morning. Getting up, he shoved his hands in his pockets and left the staff lounge, heading toward Gym Sigma. Preparing himself, he opened the door, wincing, as the loud volume hit his ears for a moment before the two fell silent, realizing he had entered. "Sho!" Izashi said, beaming at him. Shota grinned, pulling his hands out. He signed as he spoke. "Zashi, Midoriya, how is your training going?" Midoriya gave a smile and a thumbs up before his hands moved and he was signing. "I'm getting better. If I focus really hard, it stays green." Shota gave a grunt. "That's good, kiddo. Do you want to get some more practice in today, or would you like to go home?" "More practice, please." Izashi smiled, ruffling Midoriya's hair. "The little listener is doing great. I think he should be able to hold a conversation without accidentally using voice." He nodded and went to the room. Entering it, he saw the two get back to practicing. Shota watched as the light was green, but occasionally flashed red as Midoriya lost concentration. It looked like Izashi was working on getting the kid used to keeping his voice in the green, so it became more natural. It was a good thing that Izashi was able to help the kid. Izashi didn't have anyone to help him, and it took him forever to learn the control that Midoriya was able to learn quickly because of Izashi. Shota smiled as he saw the kid double over, laughing, the light changing red. It was a good thing the kid felt like laughing and smiling. Shota was glad that Nomuri had convinced him to be a teacher, if it meant he could help kids like Midoriya. Another half hour, and Izashi signaled to him that they were done. Shota switched the controls off, turning off the monitoring program, and opened the door, coming out of the room. The three walked towards the car, Izashi saying he was excited for the special guest his show would be having this weekend. Midoriya tilted his head questioningly, and Izashi winked. "Don't give any spoilers on my page, little listener, but Hawks agreed to do a segment this weekend." Midoriya's eyes widened. "Really?" He signed, his expression clearly conveying his surprise. "Yeah, it's going to be awesome," Izashi teared as he opened the door to the car. As they drove to Midoriya's apartment, Izashi listed a bunch of questions he planned on asking Hawks. Shota watched Midoriya and saw him signing. "Was that one of the reasons you asked me to talk about my analysis of Hawks today?" Playing interpreter, since Izashi was driving, Shota relayed Midoriya's question. Izashi nodded. "Yup, you gave me quite a few ideas for things to ask him, little listener, so maybe you might get some answers to your questions." Midoriya beamed, moving his hands excitedly. Shota gave an amused snort. It seemed Midoriya would definitely be tuning in this weekend. Izashi pulled into the parking lot, and with a signed goodbye, Midoriya left, heading up the stairs and into his apartment. "Now, time to pick up sushi," Izashi said, grinning as he pulled back out, and they headed toward Nomuri's house. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 29 of Little Acts of Kindness. Chapter 30 will be up next. Hope you all are still enjoying, and as always, thank you so much for listening.